I'm going to be reading my story, The Astronaut, today. Anyway, it's a story about a man who has a dream of being an astronaut. However, life hits him hard, but he perseveres and reaches his dream. An inspirational story. And I'd just like to dedicate this reading to the people I first shared this with circa like 2016 or 17. And you always supported me and told me to keep on doing it, so now I'm finally ready to share with the world at large. So before I start reading, the way my mind works, I got all this obscure references in there, and then I sometimes manage to incorporate them into an overall story, basically just stealing stuff that I know and then creating an original rendering involving bits and pieces from here and there. So anyway, the references in the story: Dr. Robotnik from Sonic, circa the 1990s, Blernsball from Futurama, Deltron 3030 by Del the Funky Homo Sapien, and Death and Decay from Warcraft. So, here we go. The Astronaut. Ever since the days of his youth, the boy's thoughts have been consumed by two things: robots and astronauts. Maybe it was some undiagnosed mental illness, or perhaps it was his love of the adventures of Deltron in the year 3030. Regardless, the dream persisted with him until he was an old man. Despite his infirmities, he knew in his heart that his dream would be achieved. The news was bleak. His children offered condolences and shed a few tears while the grandchildren ran around and played, oblivious to the situation. It was cancer. Ass cancer. Cancer in his colon. He thought of the indignity this would cause his wife if she outlasted him, the widow of the gas man? A husband dead from ass cancer? The thought filled him with revulsion and shame. He swore that would not be the death of him. Time passed. His ass continued to deteriorate, but life went on. His flatulence was reminiscent of death and decay. Modern medicine meant his life could continue to be drawn out, but the thought of simply prolonging his life did not appeal to him. A life without dignity was not worth living. There was just one hope: Dr. Robotnik. He promised himself he would travel to the farthest reaches of the solar system to find the doctor. He was the pioneer, starting in the 1990s, on experimenting with replacing decaying organic matter with metallic replacements in small animals. For his groundbreaking but taboo work, he had been exiled to the extremities of the solar system. The doctor welcomed him in warily. Each week seemingly brought in another sad soul the doctor did not want to help. The doctor deemed the man yet another patient with a desire to extend his natural life to absurd lengths by replacing their organic tissues with robotic parts. What intrigued the doctor was the man's plea. He didn't offer large sums of money, nor did he seemingly wish for his entire body to be replaced with only his mind remaining ensconced in a new metallic body. He simply longed for a dignified death. A death that did not entail leaving the smell of decay in his wake. In all his years of practicing medicine, such a plea he had not received. A deal was struck. The doctor would perform the surgery, while the man would provide a replica of his colon. When the date arrived, the doctor was perplexed. The replica colon was not an exact replica. Rather, it held two storage units, which were to be the repository for the man's gas, allowing it to be released at the place and time of his choosing. The doctor was not the type to care who smelled his flatulence, which ranged from rancid to that of flowers. However, he knew the years of emitting odors of death had weighed heavily on the patient, so he understood the man's desire. The man wished to collect and store his gas so as to release it out in a controlled fashion, so as to spare his wife the unpleasantness in their remaining time together. The man returned to Earth. His situation has remarkably improved, but the drive to realize his childhood ambitions suddenly filled him with a new fervor and vigor. The cancer had spread from his colon, so his time was running short. At least the threat of death by ass cancer didn't remain. He pondered the best place for his final exit. He thought of a place that would have huge crowds and would be broadcast live throughout the solar system. He realized it would have to be the Interplanetary Blernsball Championship a la Futurama. He sat with his family and watched the game. The preparations for the day had been easy. A simple hole had been discreetly cut in his wheelchair in order to give his ass access to the ground below him. A steady supply of Van Camp's beans and pork had been eaten in order to max out his gas containers. The time was ripe. He turned on his gas valve and opened his mechanical sphincter. He lit the lighter and put it beneath his chair. The gas caught and the flames spread to his colon. The force of it made a rumble and propelled him up. Lift off. Soon 1 meter. The eyes in his section turned to him. All were filled with astonishment. Then the first camera turned to him and he was immediately on the Jumbotron. His ascent continued. His colon was heating up. It was not made for such a velocity or temperatures. His initial smile turned into a partial grimace. The entire stadium had gone quiet. All eyes were on his ascent. 4 meters. He knew death was promised to everyone, so he feared it not. Few people could dream of going out in such a spectacular fashion. The flame reached his storage units. The man euphorically smiled again. Eruption. The astronaut's body blew up and spread over the arena. So anyway, that's the end of my story. And when my mom read it, she's like, "You spelled astronaut wrong." No, Mom. I spelled it the exact way it needed to be spelled. Anyway, hope you enjoyed my story.